Ayala? Eala? I don't even know if I'm saying her name right. Is she the biggest draw? Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now in the world?
Yes.
Is she big? Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco? Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis in the world?
Dude, it's crazy.
Yes,
she's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like on the men's side last year in Miami. Like every court, Australia, the court was standing room only. Like
Sam Querrey just said out loud what the entire tennis world has been whispering for months. And he did not say it carefully. He did not hedge it. He did not add a little disclaimer at the end to soften the blow. He looked at his co-hosts, 3 former top-ranked American tennis professionals, and he asked them a question that nobody in the sport was supposed to ask yet. Is Alex Eala the biggest draw in women's tennis right now? Bigger than Aryna Sabalenka? Bigger than Coco Gauff? And Steve Johnson, a man who spent years competing at the highest level, a former world number 21, did not even pause. He said yes, and then he said something that should send a chill down the spine of every top 10 player on tour right now. He said, "It is not even close. Before I go any further, I need you to answer this. Do you think a player ranked number 31 in the world can actually be a bigger star than the world number 1? Because these are not fans saying this. These are former professional tennis players, and they are saying it with their whole chest. Drop your answer in the comments right now because what they said next is going to change the way you look at women's tennis forever. Now let me tell you why this matters so much. Because this is not just some random opinion from someone on the internet. Sam Querrey is a former world number 11. He beat Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon. He has competed at every Grand Slam. He has walked through the tunnel at every major stadium in the world, and he knows what real star power looks like when it walks into a building. And sitting next to him were John Isner, a former world number 8, one of the tallest and most recognizable players in the history of the sport. Steve Johnson, a former world number 21 who spent over a decade grinding on the ATP Tour, and Jack Sock, a former world number 8 and a Grand Slam doubles champion. These 4 men have a combined total of over 50 years of professional tennis experience. They have seen every type of player. They have witnessed every era. And they are all looking at the same thing right now and arriving at the same conclusion. Alex Eala is something they have never seen before. On the latest episode of the Nothing Major podcast, Querrey kicked off his signature segment called Querrey's Query by asking the question that set the tennis world on fire. He asked if Alex Eala, a 20-year-old from the Philippines currently ranked 31st in the world, has become the single biggest draw in all of women's tennis. Not one of the biggest, the biggest, bigger than the world number 1, bigger than Coco Gauff, bigger than anyone. And Steve Johnson did not flinch. He said yes immediately. And then he explained why. He said Eala is having the same effect that Joao Fonseca was having on the men's side last year in Miami. But then he corrected himself. He said, actually, it is bigger than Fonseca. Every court she plays on in Australia becomes standing room only. Every match she plays in Dubai becomes standing room only. The crowds she is generating all over the world are, in his exact words, insane. And then Querrey added the part that nobody expected. He said, this is not just about one tournament or one week. He said it is like the news is getting bigger and bigger with every single event she enters. He said, wherever the Filipino community exists in the world, they are showing up in numbers that nobody in the sport has ever seen before. They have to see her. It is not optional for them. It is a cultural event. But it was John Isner who said the thing that should terrify the WTA's marketing department. He said this is a huge market. He said people underestimated how big the Filipino market actually is. And now that they finally have a star on the women's side, the floodgates have opened. He said it would be the same if they had a men's star as well. There are some huge markets around the world with untapped potential, and all they need is one player to emerge and make a name for themselves. And that is exactly what Alex Eala has done. Think about what Isner is really saying here. He is saying that the tennis world has been sitting on a gold mine for years and did not even know it. Over 110 million people in the Philippines. Over 10 million overseas Filipino workers spread across every continent on the planet. And all it took was one girl from Manila to unlock that entire audience. One girl who trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy. One girl who kept climbing the rankings when nobody was watching. And now that she has arrived, the entire sport is scrambling to keep up with her. And Eisner added something else. He said you do not just tune into Eala's matches because she is good. You tune in for the atmosphere. He said you want to watch her matches just to see what it is like on the court. Because nothing on the WTA Tour right now sounds like an Alex Eala match. And then Querrey said, the line that put Alex Eala's name in a category that most players never reach. He called her an absolute rock star. He said she was unknown until Miami last year. He said everyone can agree on that. But he said what has happened since then is unlike anything the sport has seen in recent memory. In March 2025, Eala entered the Miami Open as a wild card ranked outside the top 130. She beat 3 Grand Slam champions in straight sets. She became the first wild card in WTA history to do that in a single tournament, the first in the entire history of the tour. And from that moment on, everything changed. She finished 2025 ranked 50th in the world. She made history at the US Open as the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles match in the Open era. She won her first WTA 125 title, and now she is sitting at a career high of world number 31 after a Dubai run that included beating the world number 8 Jasmine Paolini. But here is where Querrey went somewhere dangerous. He floated a question that nobody else on the podcast was expecting. He said there has got to be a little jealousy, maybe from some of the other women on tour. He said, think about it. A player who is not even in the top 10, not even in the top 20, and she is being called the biggest star in the sport. He said players who have worked their entire lives to reach the pinnacle, players who have won Grand Slams, players like Aryna Sabalenka, have to be noticing this, and they cannot be completely comfortable with it. Now Eisner pushed back on the jealousy point. He said he did not think it was jealousy exactly, but the fact that Querrey even raised it tells you something. When a former world number 11 is sitting on a podcast in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers and asking whether the world number 1 might be jealous of a player ranked 31st, something fundamental has shifted in the sport. And everyone knows it. And the experts on the Nothing Major podcast are not the only ones saying this, because the players themselves are confirming it in real time. Jessica Pegula just won the Dubai Open, one of the biggest titles of her entire career, and in her very first press conference as champion, she did not talk about herself. She did not talk about her strategy or her opponents or her road to the final. She grabbed the spotlight and she aimed it directly at Alex Eala. She said she played Eala last year in Miami. She said she walked into that match expecting a normal crowd. And what she found was something she had never experienced before. The entire stadium was against her, on American soil, in her own country. And she said she looked around and thought, what on earth is going on? Where did these people come from? And Pegula did not stop there. She said she had been told that the Australian Open saw its best crowd ever this year, record-breaking attendance, and that this historic turnout was significantly driven by one player, Alex Eala, the biggest crowd in the history of the Australian Open, and the player who was most responsible for it was given Court 6, a tiny outer court where thousands of fans could not even get through the door. Pegula called it disrespect, and she said it looking directly into the cameras knowing the entire tennis world was watching. And then the greatest tennis player in the history of the sport added his voice to the conversation. Novak Djokovic, a man with more Grand Slam titles than anyone who has ever lived, stepped forward and said plainly that Alex Eala is the greatest tennis player the Philippines has ever produced. He said she deserves all the respect in the world. And he specifically addressed the scheduling and court assignment decisions, making it clear that in his view, tournaments have not always handled her situation in a way that reflects what she actually brings to the sport. When Novak Djokovic says something, the entire industry listens. This is not a fan account on Twitter. This is not an analyst making predictions. This is the GOAT of tennis standing up and saying that the way Alex Eala is being treated does not match the reality of what she has become. And when you stack Djokovic's words on top of Querrey's declaration, on top of Johnson's confirmation, on top of Eisner's market analysis, on top of Pegula's first-hand testimony, you start to realize that this is not an opinion anymore. This is a consensus. Now, let me be very clear about something. Nobody is saying Aryna Sabalenka is not an incredible tennis player. She is the world number one. She has multiple Grand Slam titles. She has a serve that hits harder than almost anyone on tour. She is a champion in every sense of the word. But here is the distinction these experts are drawing. There is a difference between being the best player in the world and being the biggest star in the world. And right now, according to multiple former professionals, multiple active players, and the crowd numbers at every single tournament this season, Alex Eala is winning that second race by a margin that is growing wider every week. Sabalenka wins titles. Eala fills stadiums. Sabalenka dominates on the scoreboard. Eala dominates on the ticket sales. Sabalenka commands respect from the tennis establishment. Eala commands something the tennis establishment cannot manufacture, cannot schedule, and cannot control. She commands an entire nation of fans who will travel anywhere on the planet just to watch her play. And that is what makes the Query Declaration so devastating for Sabalenka. Because rankings change, titles come and go. But cultural impact? That is permanent. And Alex Eala is building something that no number one ranking can compete with. I need to hear from you right now. If Alex Eala wins a Grand Slam this year, where does she rank among the biggest sports stories of 2026? Because Steve Johnson said it on the podcast. He said if she wins a slam, it would be one of the biggest things in the world. Not just tennis, the world. Do you agree? Tell me in the comments. And here is what makes all of this even more explosive. Because everything these experts said is about to be put to the test in the most dramatic way possible. The Indian Wells Masters begins on March 4th. It is called the 5th Grand Slam, the biggest tournament outside the four majors. And for the first time in her career, Alex Eala will be seeded, world number 31. That means she is protected in the early rounds. That means she avoids Sabalenka, Goff, and Rybakina until the deep rounds. That means she has a real, legitimate path to another statement run. And Sam Querrey said on the podcast that when Eala gets to Indian Wells, she has to play on center court or at minimum the second biggest court at the venue, because her crowds are too big for anything else. The same thing that happened with Fonseca in Miami last year is going to happen with Eala in California. And if the tournament puts her on a small court again, the backlash will be unlike anything the WTA has faced this season. Then comes the Miami Open starting March 17th. The same tournament where she shocked the world last year, the same place where Pegula walked into a wall of Filipino fans and could not believe what she was seeing. Eala is going back. And this time, she is not a wild card. She is a seeded player with a ranking and a reputation and a fan base that has grown 10 times bigger since the last time she was there. Sam Querrey started this conversation. But it has already grown far beyond one man's opinion on a podcast. The players are saying it. The legends are confirming it. The experts are declaring it. And the crowds showing up at every single tournament Alex Eala enters are proving it louder than words ever could. She is 20 years old. She is ranked 31st in the world. She has not won a Grand Slam yet. She has not cracked the top 10 yet. And she is already being called the biggest draw in all of women's tennis by people who spent their entire careers inside the sport. That is not hype. That is not national pride talking. That is a statement of fact backed by every crowd number, every ticket sale, and every stadium that has been packed to capacity this season because one name was on the schedule. Aryna Sabalenka is the best player in the world, but Alex Eala is becoming the face of women's tennis. And those are two very different things. One is decided by rankings, the other is decided by the people, and the people have already made their choice. If you think Alex Eala is the new face of women's tennis, hit that like button. If you want to see what happens when she walks into Indian Wells as a seed for the very first time, subscribe because you do not want to miss what is coming next. And drop your prediction in the comments. How far does she go at Indian Wells? Because every single expert on that podcast believes we are witnessing the beginning of something historic. And I think they are right.